So the first game today from the olden ages is going to be a game between TheMista, Soothing Light, that's Count from Count, and Hugo Once. Those are two guys from ARF, or back then they were, and one of them, the Ra, is Kimo. And the blue player, the ISIS, is Govan. I'm not exactly sure if you remember that player as well. To be honest, I don't myself. It's G-A-U-V-A-I-N, Govan. French name, of course. And well, they are going to be playing on Midgard. And since this is an old game, this has been played on 17th August 2010, so 7 years ago almost. It's going to be played without any kind of patch. And that means we should be having interesting spawn of the Midgard, and much more importantly, a lot of interesting stuff with the gods, and especially the Ra is going to be famous, or rather was famous for the mercenaries. So let's see how much of a lame is Kimo gonna employ. And if I read the comments correctly, and I'm fairly sure that I did, he was one of the lamest players back then. And yeah, I'm definitely curious how this is going to develop for both of these teams. Alright, so we are starting with looking at Soothing Light, that's Count. So I definitely have to remember to call at least the Hugo Once guy with their correct names. That's Blue Gowa, and Go One, the red one, is going to be Kimo. So I definitely hope that I'm going to remember that. And we are, of course, looking at Soothing Light, who is aiming for the corner of the map for some dock, as of course we are on Midgard, and he's also discovering already a relic. For faster infantry build time right next to Norse, that's not half bad. Even though he's not Loki, he's still Thor, and Thor, in the olden days, he basically made up his army of basically all raiding cavalry and such, basically brutal raiding and such, so not often were they going for some infantry, but I would be expecting that maybe some at least throwing axemen will be useful, and we're going to be seeing that in the minutes to come. So TheMista on the right side, who is his teammate, is having basically the same position of the dock. Maybe he could have gone slightly to the bottom, but he's thinking that it's going to be fine, especially since he has already discovered the fishies at the top, so that he's closer to his dock. And let's turn off the 404 to have a see, have a look how the fishies have spawned. And actually not all that bad, except for TheMista. For TheMista it's not really good all that much. Even though it's not tragic, definitely there were worse spawns of Midgard, but looking at the position of the fishies for Count at the top, that's not really half bad, and he should be quite happy with the spawn. And really, especially I'm looking at those three sums at the back. This is going to be definitely quite nice for them, and he's going to be helping them quite a lot. Looking right now at the bottom, we are seeing that the red player, and that's Kimo Azara, having kind of similar situation as TheMista. There's a lot of nothingness, and the fishies are quite far away, so not really much of an efficiency, but still, he does have quite nice promontory at the bottom, which he can place the dock about here, and it's going to be much better for these, and yep, not really all that bad either. Looking at the other player, Govan, and the ISIS player, he's having kinda easier spots, at least for the early game, but the pretty big nothingness in here, it's kinda scary for him. Yeah, there's like nothing at the top. He'll have to move exactly as he's already moving into the middle of the map with another villager and another dog. So that's basically going to be seen, we're going to be seeing a similar play from him and from his opponent, or rather teammate opponent on the opposite side of the map, of course Kimo. So they are literally playing the same, and we are seeing that everybody is coming for a second dog, but TheMista. TheMista is the only one sticking with just one. Let's switch into his point of view. We don't have an observer in this map, so we're gonna have to switch. Here again, basically the old school style, as in 2010. Yeah, I actually don't know if there were any kind of streams back then. Probably, yeah. Some small ones beginning, but I don't really expect that there was any kind of big streamer or anybody was streaming their point of view. I don't really think so. Not even TheMista or such players. That were really interesting to be seen as they are playing. And well, yeah, you can see this is basically standard for Midgard in the oldest spawns. And that's having berries right next to gold mine. And that's usually a problem for the Egyptian, because he needs to basically make sure that the berries go off before he is needing all that many villages on the gold. Yep, this well, something happens in there. But at the same time, what also was happening on all the Midgards is that the stragglers spawned a whole lot closer. Right now, in the maps that you have now, they are spawning basically like almost like this first one, quite far away from the TC. And since you had the trees so close by, I'm going to have a look at TheMista. He's been also quite close by. You could quite often, especially I was playing Zeus, so I was using that a whole lot, not go for storehouse, like here TheMista at the top, and basically use the stragglers at the top, which allows you to go for one fishing boat earlier, which makes for a bit trickier build order. But since, or rather when you are able to gather so many cows as TheMista, he definitely could have afforded not to invest into the storehouse and could have had a bit more optimal gameplay for him. But, well, he didn't opt to do so as he's advancing through Athena. So we should be in for some pretty aggressive game. And Suddenlight, aka Count von Count, is advancing through Freya already, 50% in. So the advances are not really all that bad. You can see the same spawn of the berry side next to gold. And the opponents, the ISIS, Gova, is just going for a temple and his ally on the right as well. They are fully expecting that there's going to be a lot of problems for them coming into the game. Yeah. I was saying at the start that Kimo was a pretty lame player back then, and you can see exactly why. His wall chips, this is something that you don't really see played today, because it's kinda shunned and spoken against, because it's kinda lame. Not kinda, it is lame. And he is definitely preparing for full attack. That's basically signaling by the position of the temple right next to the TC to protect it, and also by the huge amount of walls right next to gold, basically trying to make sure that nobody is getting into this base anytime soon. Same can be said about the ISIS on the left, basically going for the same strategy of brutal walling around the wall, even though I don't really think it's all that bad. You can see basically just wall chips by Timo, whereas this guy's already been building actually walls. That's slightly better, even though it looks similar. The effect is going to be similar, but on the left he is moving in for pretty much full-on lane, and Count for Count is right now going in for pretty much forest fire, I would be expecting. Yeah, right now it's going to be quite too late, obviously, so not really case anymore, and well, that seems to be pretty much it. As of course these guys are going to be, not those guys, just advancing at about 6 minutes, which is pretty much standard for him, and Count should definitely pay a bit more attention to Valkyrie, as she's right now taking on 5 prodigious advance. Curiously enough, this Pharaoh is not joining the fight, just in choice, but at the same time, of course, Suddenlight is already with the boats in the opponent's economy, and that's what he's trying to do in there. He has already established himself quite in the middle of the map, so that's going to be pretty much a very nice attack together with TheMista. Very good forest fire. This is actually going to be quite useful, because you can see not only is it eating on the hit points of the walls and the houses, it's going to be opening basically a highway into Kimo's base, and that's exactly what the guys need as barracks are coming up, because they are in for an attack, and already medium Hippicons at 6 minutes. So TheMista definitely had to have clicked it in quite soon, and he's having just triple stables with Count von Count going for what? Basically full raiding cavalry, exactly as I said. This is what Thors did back then, and often do even now, but nowadays you usually see them in a bit different matchups, and they are kind of forced to use even units like throwing axemen and such. Poor guy, trapped there between the tower and the Sphinx. Pretty nice raiding right now going on from TheMista, who is trying to stop the wall from coming up, or the tower from coming up, and he's probably not going to be succeeding in the long run, because this is going to cost him quite a lot of resources in the Hippicons and the damage from the TC and from the tower. But still, it should be kinda okay, especially right now with Odysseus coming for the Sphinx. And Restoration, yep, this is actually quite well played, because he has been able to get rid of the Sphinx, and is right now having the Hippicons at pretty much low health, and this is basically giving him extra army, and with the help right now from Count von Count, this is going quite well for them indeed. If you have a look on the minimap, you are going to see that nobody is really fighting for the water. Everybody is basically engaged right now in Kimo's base, with the blue player also going for classical fighting, sending X-Men and Spearmen. Few idols on the left definitely could be helping. Yet another raiding cavalry trapped right next to the tower. And looking into this position, well, pretty big problems right now for Kimo, but he still seems to be quite well alive with the Sphinx coming up. And if he can get rid of Odysseus, which he already did, it seems like, I haven't really seen him anywhere. He was probably targeted by both towers and the town center. This is going to be exactly what's going to help him in the defense, especially with the help right now arriving from Govan, the blue player. of course, kind of classic spam on the water from the Eggies. They are having a lot of fishing boats, of course, across the shoreline, as we are looking at still. They're going on into the red space, but it seems to be basically right now abating because of the blue help, and it doesn't seem like that the horses are going to be able to handle all the spearmen, and that's exactly what's going to be a threat right now. And yep, also the reason why TheMista is switching into the archer range, as he's going to be needing a lot of toxols to get rid of that. Looking at the position of this front TC, this is quite nice for him. Is it actually his? It actually isn't. This is actually Chemo's front TC. Well, that's pretty horrible then, because it's kind of from him through the forest line. I was kind of thinking that it's actually TheMista's because it was so well spawned for him. And looking how the water battle is picking up is basically the result of the fact that on the land the water, or rather the battle, is basically over, and there's not much right now that TheMista with Surin Line could be doing other than just be raiding, which is exactly what they're probably going to be changing into. Yep, the Epicons in here, and raiding cavalry already mediums on the left, and Wallin unfortunately not really finished, still wide open, and that's going to mean pretty big problems for Gowan, right, as the blue player. He's trying to finish with the Wallin at the top, whereas Chemo is just going for armory, and it seems to be still kinda alright, which I'm fully expecting that he will be. God damn it. This one. Because he's having really pretty big water economy, even though I'm not exactly sure for how much longer. Because of course, since Count for Count is basically forced into a water battle against Gowan, I'm fully expecting that TheMista might be wanting to join in the middle, or rather on the bottom side as well. Or maybe he's going to be leaving it to just Count, and Count will be quite fine once he gets rid of the blue player. Yet again, kinda unfortunate gold, of course, because there is no easy way back to the TC. They just have to go all around, so potentially pretty big problem, and this wall is going to be pretty crucial for the defense of the goal. And of course, those units should be kinda keeping close by, as I don't expect that Count for Count is going to be given up anytime soon. First, I'm still trying to find something to kill. But unfortunately, that's basically his Epigons. That's the thing that's going to get killed to the Spearman, and it means that basically he should be switching into something else, basically the same as his opponents. As there's not much that through the pure horses they could be doing. So some interestingly placed Spearmen, as we are looking also at second DC already captured and third being captured right now by Count. Already even the second right next to his military buildings because of the gold and such. And stealing a TC from his opponent, so of course that's going to be helping him quite a lot. And is it actually his opponents? Huh. Not all that sure. TCs are altogether weirdly spawned. I'm kinda thinking that this was actually TheMista's front. Either this one or this one. Yeah, not any one of them is actually any kind of great placement for Chemo. So Chemo definitely was kind of obscured in here due to the TC placement. But as an again, I'm not exactly sure that he should be mining all that much, because he does have the back TC, which is right now going to be attempting to take, even though you can see the failure right now. Fortunately for him, Pharaoh is going to get that. And that's going to open a whole big can of worms, because with just a few villages in here, and no Pharaoh, the town center is potentially going to be coming up quite slow, and well, that's not really ideal at all for him, even though he's attempting to advance into Heroic Age. Hero Fradian right now for Govan, as Count for Count is paying enough attention to protect his teammate TheMista, and is right now switching even into Hersiers, because he needs some extra units against all the Sphinxes that are actually coming up, especially from Chemo, and are they actually coming up from the blue as well? Not really, but he's making the Hersiers just to basically protect from the raiding that's potentially coming from the red player, from the Sphinxes, so pretty good raiding on the gold, of course. He really needs to be working on this tree a bit more, because that's going to be basically the way through, and once he gets rid of it, he should be able to sneak through, but I wouldn't be all that sure. But he really should be taking a bit more care with that, as of course that's going to be costing him a lot of villages right now, and could have been avoided if he was playing slightly better. So Heroic Age is already in, as you can see, for the Isis, as we are seeing the Scorpion Man with Heroic Age from TheMista as well, through Apollo, of course. Or of course, maybe there could have been some kind of chance for Dionysus, as he was going for the gold quite sneaky on the right side, but unfortunately has been pushed off for him. Unfortunately for him, of course, as Chemo was paying enough attention, and doesn't really want to let anything like that happen to him. He's also going for a bit of scouting into the waters to see if TheMista is going to be fighting for the water or not. Oh, well, he probably isn't, because you can see that he's housed. And he's having so many resources that he's definitely going to be switching into Mythical Age pretty soon, as he's going for the front TC, and once he captures that, well, pretty big problems are going to be coming in for Kimo, who has just now captured the second TC himself. So 2 TCs for the Egyptians, both of them. Ragi right now for Count, as he's 3 TCs and basically controlling the TC in the front, and he's having just normal throwing axemen, but he's having bronze in copper, which, as a Thor, is basically meaning that he's aiming for Ragnarok. Because that's the reason, or rather, that's why he doesn't have any kind of line upgrades, even though he's using the units. And let's switch into him. And most definitely he's going for full Ragnarok, and that's the reason for the extra TCs, as he wants to be having the villages exactly on time once he's ready with the Mythical Age. So a bit of an attempt right now from Govan into the TC of Count for Count. Which, of course, Count is not going to be mining all that much, but it might actually open some kind of window of opportunity for the blue player, because he's having villages close by, he's having a big role to at least protect them, and the gold, of course, and he might be really wanting to take the DC as soon as possible, but here we go with the piggy, and yeah. That one is going to be throwing everything around, and especially with proper micro right now, with the horses coming on the chariot archers and the pharaoh, and the boar is going to be dealing with the rest together with the throwing axemen in place. Well, they're coming in, of course, as you're also looking at 45 DC here. Like what? You don't really go for those researches in town centers under fire. Concentrated right now through Sphinxes, and exactly the reason that Count went for the Hersers a bit before. But you want to actually make the upgrades into the longevity of the buildings in the safe TCs, because, of course, TC under attack can come down sooner than you are ready with the research, and that would be actually pretty bad for him. Nice use of the rock. Protect the Sphinxes in here. But, well, it doesn't seem like that really. Count should be able to hold this DC, and it's going to be quite close with the fortified one. It's going to be like 3 more, so it's going to be fine, just fine. So he's going to be slowing this distraction down a bit more. Yep, it's quite nice jump for him. And with the Ragnarok coming into place, we are going to be checking on TheMista, who isn't really doing all that much as I was looking at the minimap, but he was, of course, waiting for the Mythical Age, and we should be seeing a spam of armories somewhere. His base, or is he not actually going for it? To be honest, this is a pretty rather old game, and the switch into Forge of Olympus wasn't really all that common until only a few years ago, when it was discovered to be quite OP and such. As we are looking at basically Count waiting for all the upgrades. He's having bronze shields, bronze weapons already, and copper mail, so we are going to be waiting for a bit more from him, and then it's going to be unleashing the end of the world, and a bit of fun for the opponents. On the water, the fight didn't really go anywhere. You can see that everybody still quite fishing without any kind of problems all around the map. So not really any kind of problem at all, and well, we are looking at TheMista having just medium Hippicon still, so he should be probably switching into... Okay, so he's switching just into full colossal spam. Full colossal spam. I was maybe waiting that he might be wanting to go for some myrmidons or some such, which are not all that awesome unit against Egyptians. Egyptians can defend against that if they play it correctly, but let's see if that's going to be the case in here. In the meantime, yep, nice attempt with the ancestors from Govan into the town center of his opponent, but of course it means that he had to call the Ragnarok, because he would be losing units needlessly, especially civilians. Civilians, and that's not something that he wants on the brink of Ragnarok. So bronze, 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 all 3 bronze, that's pretty good Ragnarok from him. Should be looking probably at full-on limit. 87, yeah, that's going to be pretty much almost there. He's probably having a few more fishing boats in there, so probably like 75 heroes of Ragnarok, something like that. But it should be pretty much alright, because his opponent is having heavy chariots with copper shields and bronze weapons, but what good is that going to do? when you are going to be facing melee units, you need actually the armor against melee, and well, yeah, well, let's see how this is going to fare. At the same time, of course, we are looking at Hugo 1 basically nicely prepared with the double fortresses, Migdos, and a lot of towers. You can see already a lot of towers in here. No fortified TC, that's a pretty big minus. He needs not only the extra population, but the extra hit points, and we are also looking at that, of course, Count is going to be helping TheMista at the bottom, who is arriving at the opponent's base with Silver Colossus already, and seems to be having pretty nice resources. Of course, with 160 population limit basically at full, so you should be having 45 town center. Where's the town center? Yes, and it's right now building a lot of archer ranges and switching into military academy as well. So there's going to be a whole lot of probably the Myrmidons with Toxots switching from the from the Hippicons, as he needs all the gold for the Colossi, and of course Hippicons are quite expensive. Yeah, right into the middle of the trade, and also walling it in. So that's of course a pretty big problem right now for Kimo, who is having 45 TC. So of course that's going to be enough for him. And well, in the meantime, on the left side, Hugo 1, aka Gowan, is not really doing all that well. He has already lost the Migdol, and he seems to be losing the battle as well, because his opponent has already invested also into champion raiders. So he is having quite a lot of extra resources, happy throwing X-Men already, and even though mercenaries are coming in right now from the Egyptian, it's most probably not going to be enough, but he does need a whole lot of siege because the towers are in pretty huge numbers and pretty bad numbers overall. And yeah, this is not really something that Count should be going through without any kind of support from extra fire giants or maybe even ballista and such. In the meantime, we are looking at, of course, underworld passage from the Greek, as he's going for the back TC of Kimo, and that's of course extra problem because of the trade, as he's going right next to it, and if he's attempting, or rather successful going to be in stealing it, he doesn't have ceasefire. There's still one pretty good power right now from Count, and Hugo 1 is still in the heroic age, unfortunately for him. First one, yep, and he's not going anywhere at all, looking at the resources. And well, the light is out of gold, and that's of course basically the direct consequence of the Ragnarok, because without any kind of economy in there, he is going to be running out of resources, and he is most definitely running out of steam, as Hugo 1 seems to be exactly on top of him, and not only due to the towers, but he's also spamming quite a decent amount of units still, as he is having quite easy access to gold. But for how much longer actually? Ooh, first one, 800, well that's pretty bad. He needs to somehow move forward, try to capture this TC, which is quite nicely protected by the hill fort, and this gold would have been quite crucial, and especially with the basically trade being stopped. I'm not exactly sure what the blue player could be doing, exactly as he's losing the town centers due to very nice spam of Colossi from TheMista, and Kimo is at least going to be a bit let on. He should be having a bit of a chance right now with the Son of Osiris being ready, and let's see if he's going to be able to take care of the underworld passage or not. Because this is without any kind of patch, so the repair rate is going to be super fast, as the flaming weapons are going to be just now over, and that also means that Count is basically out of any units. You can see that there's absolutely nothing left for him, and right now it might be Gowan's turn to somehow help the game, as basically this is right now going to be for a moment, for a few minutes, up to TheMista to hold on. As there's pretty nice attempt on the TC of Count von Count, as Count von Count is just now rebuilding himself. You can see it, all the villages, not all the farms right now being finished, and he will need all the help that he can get, especially from the trade that is coming through all the funny places. Why would you set a trade in here? I kinda understand the reason, because he was having the market build here through the units, but he needs to switch it up. He needs to build a market about at the top. See, he's already moving for the gold, and then that's going to be some sweet trade, for example, to this DC, or even through one of TheMista, and well, yeah, he definitely needs to work on that, as of course the short trade route is not ideal for his rebuilding attempts and attempting to stay in the fight, rather in the fight. Colossi, of course, quite hard to take down with the huge hit points without the patch and huge armor. A pretty big problem from Hugo one who is right now at 0 TCs as he's trying to rebuild one, and well, definitely nicely placed locusts, as of course the red player needs to get rid of all the citizens, because Underworld Passage is already gone, and with those guys gone, no fortress, no stopping of the trade, and of course pretty good attempt right now, or rather opportunity for Kimo and his teammate Govan to retake the back TCs and then going through front as the Egyptians. They should be having enough gold if the trade gets going, because of course that's exactly what they need, and then it's going to be allowing them a bit of spam of mercenaries, as we are looking basically at TheMista right now switching into Myrmidons, but not having any kind of upgrades yet. And this is really this is super interesting, because if this game was kinda played today without the patch, you could be just assured that you will be seeing like 2-3 armories at the back of the Zeus right after he advances into Mythical Age and getting all the extra upgrades. But right now we are at 23 minutes and looking at TheMista having no upgrades whatsoever, just now the first one, copper weapons. And well, that's the difference of the games back then and now. And the evolution of the meta basically. Depicted right here. Well, interesting switch. Interesting switch indeed. From Count into Valkyries. That's something you don't really see all that often in Mythical Age. But that's basically confirmation that he doesn't have gold. Yeah, you can see he's basically out of gold. And since Valkyries costs just food, yeah, why not? It's going to be working for him, because he should be having enough income of the favor from all the battles, but he definitely needs to be careful, because Son of Osiris is very much alive, and the mummies as a counter to all those colossi, they are going to be working like a charm even against those. This dude's still quite alive, with Military Academy coming down reasonably soon, and it's basically just waiting for what's going to come next, and it's probably going to be attack from Count, because he's waiting with his army right next to the hill fort, basically preventing the TC from coming into enemy hands, and yep, that's going to be exactly what it takes, because TheMista is right now at 4 TCs. And that's going to be a pretty big problem for his opponent, even with potential spam of mercenaries from the town centers. Just normal Myrmidons. That's kinda interesting to me, because he's going rather than the line upgrades. He's going for armory upgrades, and I definitely think that's a strong approach. Because of course the line upgrades are making such a huge difference, especially the first one into medium that's like dirt cheap. It makes such a huge difference, and it's really somewhere clicked in. I don't really see him anywhere being clicked in, but that's kinda curious. He definitely is. Even though he's going for a whole lot more extra military building, literally all across the map, so that he is on top of his opponents. And they are doing a pretty good job in the meantime. Even though they are not having the military advantage, they are trying to stop the trade as much as they can, and slowly but surely creeping into the middle. And yep, that's exactly the aim in here. Stop the trade, and once that happens, GG, because the gold is basically out. There are just a few gold mines left. As Count is moving into the offensive through the wall in here. He has already taken the TC himself, and he is right now at 4 TCs, but TheMista has dropped to 3, and that's because elephants are going for a bit more fun, and Catapult quite nicely hidden behind the tree line with the wall around it. But Bellerophon is having other ideas. But he's also stuck. He was stuck for a moment in there, but of course Bellerophon is going to be a pretty big problem to any kind of attempts like this. But still, Kimo was successful in dropping down TheMista to at least 3 DCs, and that might actually allow him to do something, maybe even capture it for himself, but he needs to be careful right now at the back of his base, because finally TheMista is invested into the line upgrades, having heavy Myrmidons and going already into the bronze line and probably into iron line as well. And taking down the town center, dropping Kimo back to 1. But at the same time, his ally Govan is back to 2. Resources, he can literally spend it on everything that he wants, and Count, I kinda think that Count could actually use a lot of resources from TheMista, because he's at 40 Cs, but you can see the population limit, or rather you can see that the bottom is just 140. Basically 2 town centers are unused altogether, and looking at the amount of resources that he's having pretty big problems staying on top of the game. And that might be because he's having the military buildings quite far away, and not really used all that much, which is curious, to be honest. Not exactly sure what he's actually sparing the resources for, because he definitely needs a whole lot more units. He's at least right now building long houses on the left side, but still, kinda curious game, because looking at the middle, there's not really all that much happening right now. Son of Osiris is still alive, so quite good job by keeping him as such. But TheMista is already a champion and will be wrecking absolutely everything that is coming through this part of the map. But to go back to Count, still the woefully inefficient trade route for him. Having 43 gold, that's not half bad, but still, would have been so much better. And curiously enough, he's not really using all that many of those long houses, even though he definitely right now has the resources. So much of them right now, and he should be pretty much fine right now, spamming off absolutely everything. It seems like that he's quite content, not really going for auto queues, but going for just normal manual production of units, which is of course holding him back a bit, because I'm fully expecting that Hugo 1, for example, is having auto queue. Having auto queue on the middle, of course, and potentially even other units through the barracks. But he unfortunately doesn't have enough resources, like at all. He's absolutely drained altogether, and that's the reason why he cannot even advance into Mythic Age, as he's still in the Heroic, and unfortunately cannot be really fully useful. But at the same time, he's still doing a pretty good job against 4TC, 3 to 4TC Count, who is in Mythic after Ragnarok. So yep, it has to be said that Govan is not playing half bad. Still trade very much alive. TC yet again up for Chemo, as he has been able to get rid of TheMista. The champion chariot just baseline, but of course it's kinda caused by the fact that he is having pretty bad economy, as he is still being under pretty heavy pressure from his opponents, who are still inevitably moving in right now with towers and also some fortress spam. As TheMista basically doesn't know what to do next, it seems like. Having pretty big problems with somehow dealing the final blow, but I'm thinking that with all the upgrades that he's going to be having above his opponent, he's already full iron right now, he should be quite fine with the extra colossi. But really, Bellerophon needs to be having 1v1. A bit of talk with the Son of Osiris. And his lightning rod, of course.
In which?
Well, another one is coming through the middle. So that's a few more colossi trying to basically diversify. And I'm kind of thinking that he should be pretty much fine to just go for it. And I'm really missing some extra Helepoli, which, curiously enough, oh, not Mista. Ah, yeah, finally they are clicked in, sorry. Just fumbling around in here with the map control, and he's still continuing with the spam of the military buildings, which is exactly what he should be doing, because the closer you are to the battlefield, the closer the units are, and of course, the reinforcements as well. The meantime, at the top side, so that like a Count seems to be still basically at the same spot. Even though he is right now exactly on the gold, which is exactly what he needs. And killing the Pharaoh, which should help him quite nicely. And with all the ballistae, which are not really half bad against units either, even though they are not really upgraded, it seems like. Ah, actually they are, with engineers. They should be kinda alrightish, especially if he gets some extra help, but he needs to be careful about actually blocking his own units. Oh yeah, that's kinda tough for those guys to actually make their way through. Be a bit more careful about that, but he is slowly but surely pushing through, and might be on the brink of victory against his opponent. At the same time, TheMista is pushing ever forward. He has been able to take down. He'll take down the main TC of Chemo, who is back to 1, and well, at least he's doing rather getting rid of the colossi, because of course the mummy, that's the direct counterplay to them. Son of Osiris is still amongst the living. He's actually quite alive for a long time, for like 15 minutes. Pretty good job keeping him alive for so long, but with the spam of the towers and such, there's not really all that much that he could be doing, or rather that Chemo could be doing against that. And we are right now seeing that the blue player has recognized that the game has gone out of his power, and is resigning to Count, who is right now just going to be cleaning the job, and even if to Chemo and TheMista on the right to battle it out themselves. So is he going to survive till the end game? And no, he isn't. Yeah, that's exactly what I said a bit earlier that should happen. And Bellerophon, yep, delivering the blow to the son of Osiris, just jumping around as much as he can, like now getting rid of this mummy as well, of course. But definitely wanting to finish the game on high note, and to at least get it down center for himself, but with the Helipolis right now coming into play, probably not going to happen. Come on, hit, yes. Yep, the TC is not coming up, and the towers are in pretty brutal numbers, and yeah, you can see the last resign, and Count with TheMista are winning after pretty long battle, and looking actually at the progress of the game, and how well ahead with the Ragnarok, the upgrades, the town centers, TheMista and Sudden, like AK Count, were actually ahead. It took them quite a long time to get rid of 2 TC Egyptians, and that's exactly what was happening without the patch, and what is happening without the patch, because Egyptians are really kinda good. And it has to be said that TheMista played weirdly, because he didn't have upgrades for such a long time. Like, really, he started with upgrades at like 20 minutes plus, maybe even longer than that. Which is something that definitely wouldn't happen nowadays. But still, the Egyptians were a pain in the ass. And kinda still are, but not really all that much. The game is much better on the Wobbly Balance patch too, I'm thinking. But really, definitely good job by the 2 ARFs, ARF Goan, the blue player, and ARF Kimo, the red player. Well, a lot of towers all around the map, but in the end from both teams, because TheMista basically recognized that he needs to lane the same as his opponents, because without that, it might be a bit too hard for him to push through. Even though I'm kinda thinking that he probably would have in the end as well. He was just basically waiting for Count to get back on his feet after Ragnarok, which was taking him quite a bit of time. And also a bit longer, because he wasn't using auto Q, which meant that his opponent had a bit of an advantage against him as long as he had resources to spam units. Could have seen that Count wasn't really having enough population limit covered, even though he definitely had resources, but in the end he had even that. That was a bit drained in the end. Okay, let's check the boss game. Count in the end winning on the score. Because of the economy, probably? No, because of the military, so just the Ragnarok, I'm thinking, is the reason why he won in there. The best score. But the differences in the economy are pretty brutal right now. Especially for Count, he was having such a better economy than his allies and even opponents. Interesting indeed. And this is kind of interesting in the economy, because you can see that the blue Goan was having like 13 more villages or other citizens than Kimo, and still he couldn't get into the mythic and was the wars off, whereas Kimo was the one who was holding, so yep, he was quite efficient with what he was doing. And of course, it's understandable, the difference in the upgrades in there, because quite literally TheMista with Count didn't have anything to spend their money on. Well, Ragnarok didn't really do all that much. It was nicely defended and prepared for by Goan by all the towers and the Migros. Oh, GG.